Do you know how an ordinary woman, unknown beyond her small town, carried years of silent suffering, believing that God still listened even when pain darkened her days and hope felt distant? In the early days of Lourdes, before crowds and certainty, a quiet encounter unfolded, where simple faith met hidden grace, and a wounded life was gently touched in a way no one expected. What followed was not spectacle, but transformation, revealing how God works through humility, patience, and trust, long before the world takes notice. This is the story of the Lourdes miracle of Blaisette Cazenave. Before beginning, drop an Ave Maria in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more stories of Our Lady. Don't forget to share it so others may discover this story and be inspired to live holier lives. Chapter 1. Blaisette Cazenave and the long darkness over her eyes. Blaisette Cazenave lived quietly in Lourdes, an ordinary woman whose name would never have been noticed among the crowds of pilgrims. She was not a visionary, not a public figure, not someone whose life drew attention. She belonged to that silent majority of the poor and suffering, those who carried their burdens without noise. Her days passed simply, marked by work, prayer, and an unremarkable presence in a small town. For nearly 3 years, Blaisette endured a severe disease of the eyes, described as chronic inflammation accompanied by ectropion, a painful deformation of the eyelids. Her eyes were constantly irritated, exposed, and inflamed, causing continuous discomfort and visible suffering. What others took for granted, the simple act of seeing, became for her a source of pain. Darkness settled slowly, not only over her sight, but over her daily life. The physical pain was relentless, but the deeper wound lay in how the illness confined her existence. Ordinary tasks became exhausting, relationships strained, and moments of rest offered little relief. Each day demanded endurance rather than joy. The illness wore down her strength and her spirit alike, testing her patience and resilience. Like many who suffer silently, Blaisette learned how quickly illness can shrink one's world and isolate the heart. At that time, available remedies offered little hope. Treatments failed to bring lasting improvement, and medical knowledge provided no clear solution. Blaisette lived with the awareness that her condition might never change. This helplessness was not dramatic, but heavy and constant. She carried it quietly, learning to endure without certainty, trusting that her suffering was seen, even if no human answer seemed possible. Lourdes in 1858 was still a modest town, suddenly stirred by extraordinary events. The apparitions at the Grotto of Massabielle had unsettled daily routines and awakened deep spiritual questions. Faith, doubt, curiosity, and hope mingled in the streets. For the sick and poor, something new was taking shape. Not yet fully understood, but sensed as a gentle invitation emerging within ordinary life. Within this atmosphere, the sick began approaching the spring as a sign of hope. They came not out of fascination with wonders, but from a simple desire to live, to be relieved, to be heard. Blaisette joined them without expectation of spectacle. Her movement toward the water was quiet, guided by trust rather than certainty, by longing rather than demand, by a humble hope born from necessity. Gradually, Blaisette's suffering became a silent prayer. Without words, her pain turned her heart toward God, shaped by a faith that asked without insisting. She did not seek signs or explanations. She offered her weakness itself, trusting that God listens closely to the poor and afflicted. In that hidden surrender, her story began to open toward grace, carried by the simple confidence of the lowly. Chapter 2. Coming to the Lourdes Spring in Simple Faith. Blaisette slowly approached the spring near the Grotto of Massabielle, a place already marked by prayer, silence, and expectation. People gathered there not as curious onlookers, but as wounded souls seeking consolation. The rocky hollow, simple and unadorned, had become a meeting place between human suffering and divine mercy. For Blaisette, this was not a place of certainty, but a threshold where hope dared to breathe again. She did not come searching for the extraordinary or demanding a visible sign. She came as a poor woman who had reached the limits of her own strength and understanding. Her steps were guided not by confidence, but by surrender. She placed herself entirely in God's mercy, without bargaining or conditions, bringing only her need. In that humility, her journey became an act of trust rather than expectation. Using the spring water in the simplest way, Blaisette washed and gently applied it to her aching eyes. There was no elaborate ritual, no dramatic movement meant to draw attention. Everything unfolded quietly, within a spirit of prayer. The water touched her wounds as she silently entrusted her pain to God, allowing the moment to become a prayer shaped more by faith than by words. What mattered most was not the gesture itself, but the inner disposition that accompanied it. Blaisette approached God with faith and humility, acknowledging her own powerlessness. She did not rely on formulas or techniques, but on trust. Her action reflected a deep truth of Christian prayer. God responds not to methods, but to hearts that abandon themselves to Him, even without knowing the outcome. At Lourdes, Catholic faith has always made a clear distinction. The water is not magic and carries no power of its own. Healing comes from God alone. The spring serves as a sign that points beyond itself, directing hearts toward divine mercy. Any grace received returns glory to God, not to the place or the water. This understanding guards faith from superstition and preserves its purity. Blaisette took her place among those who prayed, like everyone else, without privilege or recognition. She stood among the sick, the weary, and the hopeful, sharing the same vulnerability. Her presence blended into the crowd, marked only by pain and petition. In that shared poverty, social differences disappeared, and all stood equally before God, bound by need and hope. It was precisely this ordinariness that revealed the heart of the gospel. God often comes quietly, choosing moments that pass unnoticed. Grace unfolds without spectacle, meeting the lowly where they are. Blaisette's simple approach to the spring reflected this divine pattern. In humility and trust, she placed herself where God delights to act, among the small, the unseen, and the forgotten. Chapter 3. The Moment of Healing and a Life Transformed. According to historical records, Blaisette was healed around March 1858, when she was about 50 years old. The timing itself carried quiet significance, coming during the earliest days of Lourdes, before clear categories or expectations had formed. Nothing dramatic announced the moment. It unfolded simply within ordinary time, yet it marked a turning point that would forever divide her life into before and after, suffering and restoration. The change in her eyes was not a fleeting sensation or a subjective feeling of comfort. It was visible, concrete, and unmistakable. Those around her noticed that her eyes, once inflamed and distorted, now appeared calmer and healthier. The relief was not imagined. It showed itself in her gaze, in her movements, and in her growing ease. What had long been a source of pain now revealed a surprising clarity. The chronic inflammation and deformation of the eyelids, which had resisted treatment and endured stubbornly, receded in a way that defied expectation. There was no gradual improvement following known patterns of recovery. Instead, the change was sudden and stable. For those familiar with her condition, this reversal was deeply striking. It challenged ordinary explanations and invited a different kind of understanding rooted in faith. Her joy extended far beyond the absence of pain. What returned to her was dignity. She could see without anguish, work without constant strain, and engage with others freely. Daily life, once narrowed by illness, opened again. The healing restored her capacity to be present, to contribute, and to live without the constant reminder of limitation. It was a renewal of wholeness, not merely a medical improvement. Blaisette became a living witness within her local community, not through speeches or prominence, but through her transformed life. She did not seek attention, yet her presence spoke quietly of what had happened. Neighbors who had known her suffering now encountered her renewed strength. In her, they recognized not human achievement, but the gentle touch of God, reaching into an ordinary, hidden existence. The story spread naturally, as stories do in small towns. Those who had seen her before and after spoke with conviction. Word passed from voice to voice, from observation to memory, until it was written down and preserved. This was not a tale shaped by exaggeration, but by shared experience. The community became its guardian, ensuring that what had been witnessed would not be forgotten. From that moment forward, Blaisette's life took a new direction. Illness no longer defined her days. Gratitude replaced despair, and faith deepened through lived experience. Her life revolved around thanksgiving and a renewed closeness to God. The healing did not end her journey. It reshaped it, turning suffering into remembrance and restoration into a lifelong act of praise. Chapter 4: The Church's Discernment and the Recognition of a Miracle. The Church does not hastily label every healing as a miracle. From the beginning, she chooses patience and careful discernment, aware of the responsibility entrusted to her. Each claim is approached with sobriety, prayer, and rigorous examination. This restraint protects faith from exaggeration and illusion. It ensures that what is proclaimed as miraculous truly points beyond human explanation, directing hearts toward God rather than toward emotion or unchecked enthusiasm. The case of Blaisette Cazenave was recorded among the earliest officially recognized healings linked to Lourdes. It belonged to the first group examined under the authority of the Diocese of Tarbes. These early cases carried particular weight as they helped establish clear criteria and methods of evaluation. Blaisette's story was preserved not as an isolated marvel, but as part of a broader ecclesial discernment taking shape during Lourdes' earliest years. The investigative process involved careful comparison of her condition before the healing, the immediate changes observed afterward, and the stability of the recovery over time. Witness testimonies were gathered, medical observations reviewed, and consistency examined. This method sought clarity rather than speed. The Church listened attentively to facts and experiences, allowing time to confirm that what had occurred was neither temporary nor misinterpreted. Within this discernment, specific criteria guided judgment. The healing needed to be complete, rapid, lasting, and impossible to explain according to the medical knowledge of the time. These elements formed a disciplined language of evaluation. In Blaisette's case, her recovery met each requirement. What medicine could not resolve over years was restored suddenly and endured, challenging ordinary understanding and inviting recognition of divine action. The official recognition of the miracle attributed to Blaisette Cazenave was announced on the 18th of January, 1862, by Bishop Lawrence of Tarbes. This declaration was not a private opinion, but a public ecclesial act. It affirmed that, after thorough investigation, the healing could be attributed to God's intervention. The announcement, placed her experience within the Church's living memory and pastoral responsibility. Such recognition was never meant to heighten emotion or create spectacle. Its purpose was pastoral and theological. By proclaiming a miracle, the Church directs attention to God's mercy and safeguards faith from confusion or superstition. Discernment becomes a service to truth. It helps believers distinguish genuine signs of grace from human projection, ensuring that devotion remains anchored in humility and reverence. Through this careful approach, Lourdes emerged as a place of balance. Popular devotion flourished, yet always under the watchful discernment of the Church. Faith and reason were not opposed, but held together. This harmony allowed Lourdes to become a sanctuary where simple prayer and rigorous evaluation coexist, offering a credible witness that respects both the mystery of God and the responsibility of belief. Chapter 5. Lessons of Faith and a Prayer with Our Lady. God looks upon the lowly, and great grace is often entrusted to lives the world does not notice. Blaisette teaches us that holiness and divine action are not reserved for the famous or strong. God delights in hidden faith, in patience carried quietly. When hearts remain open amid obscurity, heaven draws near and transforms what seems small for our salvation. Faith does not mean demanding miracles. It means surrendering to God whatever the outcome. Lourdes reminds us that trust remains real whether healing comes or the cross remains. True belief waits without conditions. It hopes without bargaining. Even unanswered prayers can deepen love, shaping hearts to follow Christ faithfully through pain, endurance, and quiet perseverance within daily life, always humbly. Lourdes teaches the proper order of devotion. Every grace comes from God, never from objects or places. Mary does not replace Christ. She intercedes and leads us to Him. Her maternal presence opens hearts to Jesus. When devotion remains ordered, prayer becomes communion, and gratitude rises toward the Father through the Son, in the Spirit with reverent trust always present. The Church's careful discernment teaches balance, protecting faith from superstition and haste. By testing claims patiently, she serves truth and pastoral care. This discipline invites believers to trust God without fear, to love signs without idolizing them. Faith grows clearer when reason and prayer walk together, illuminating paths where emotion alone might mislead hearts and safeguard authentic Christian hope today. What matters most is not simply recovery, but a renewed life shaped by grace. Healing awakens gratitude, compassion, and service. Those restored are invited to love more deeply and to remember others who suffer. When thanksgiving guides action, mercy multiplies. A changed heart becomes a living witness, revealing God's goodness through ordinary faithfulness and generous charity within the human family. Lady of Lourdes, gentle mother, you draw the sick toward hope and lead them to mercy's spring. Intercede for us in trials. Teach us trust when strength fails, humility when we ask, fidelity when crosses remain. Hold our fears, console our waiting, and guide our steps toward your Son, who heals hearts and saves souls by your loving intercession always. Teach us to seek Jesus above every sign and gift. Whether healthy or ill, may our hearts belong to God alone. Form our lives into thanksgiving. Let suffering refine love, and joy deepen praise. May each day become an offering until we rest in God's peace, praising Him forever, with the Church, saints, and angels eternally united in glory. Amen.